morning. Back at that point where I don't have reception, even though I have things that I should be listening to that I downloaded. I'd rather talk to you all right now. I saw an article and I saw another video discussing this as well, so I'm not the only one who saw it. It was suggested to me on my Twitter feed, and apparently there's a documentary coming out. It's going to be on some channel I don't have cable or satellite. I don't have TV. I just have internet. But I subscribe to some internet streaming, but I don't have a regular TV. So whatever I can stream for free or that I subscribe to, I have. But I don't know if I'm ever going to see this documentary. I'm kind of curious to see it, but it's just very strange to me that someone would bother to make a whole documentary and that a TV station would be willing to broadcast this documentary about how a comedian, or I guess self-proclaimed comedian, I mean, don't comedians get jokes? But a comedian made a documentary about how offended he has been his whole life by the character of Apu Nahasina Pentalon from the television series The Simpsons. He describes how he, as someone of Indian descent, growing up in New York City, recalls how, he would come to school in the morning and the other kids would see him and they say, "Oh, hello, Mr. Homer, thank you, come again," those type of things. Because, well, he's an American of Indian descent, and so was Apu from The Simpsons. So that's highly offensive, and it hurts his feelings. And he's like, how do I answer back? He's like, in New York City, everybody tries to be funny, but how do you answer back, when they make fun of an accent? And, I mean, you could make fun of someone else with a different accent. I don't know, a British accent, a Brooklyn accent. I mean, they do that to everybody in The Simpsons. Like, why? I mean, alright, so, then he's offended because, well, it's a white guy who does the voice of Apu, you're gonna say, you're gonna be offended by the stereotype of Rabbi Krastovsky, but that was Jackie Mason doing it. So Jackie Mason, he's allowed to do a Jewish character because he's Jewish, but who is it, Hank Azaria, since he's Greek, he can't do an Indian character. It goes back to the old Amos and Andy show, and on radio, where they had white guys playing black characters, and that's just so offensive. When they finally went on TV, actually, they made a movie, Check and Double Check, in 1930, where the white actors from Amos and Andy on the radio appeared in blackface, and that's highly offensive. But when they got to the 50s, then they actually had African American people playing Amos and Andy, and okay, I mean, aren't people just people? I mean, does it matter who's playing what? On the original Empire Strikes Back, the Emperor was played by a woman. How could a woman play a male character? How is that okay? I mean, I assume the Emperor, we see in the other, Palpatine, he's a guy. So, I don't know. So anyway, what else we gotta say about this? So how come it's not working? I mean, alright, I can understand the grievance there and whatever, but still, I don't know. It seems like if you're a comedian, you should get that, like, things are funny. And, you know, like this, there was someone commenting on this on YouTube, and he was talking about how brilliant of a film. I never saw the film. Mel Brooks made a movie, Blazing Saddles, which addresses a lot of racial stereotypes and makes fun of racism and shows how ridiculous racism is and how stupid racism is. And that's the whole point of the movie. But in order to show how ridiculous it is, by today's standards, and I don't think it's really today's standards, I think it's what is being engineered to be today's standards. I don't know if people really believe like this. But like, this is politically incorrect, this is offensive, but that's the whole point. Like, the whole point is to show how ridiculous and stupid it is to be racist. And so by doing so, like, people are offended because it's racist. Like, I mean, and here, like, Apu, who doesn't like Apu? It's not like he's a negative character. I mean, I can see a lot more things to be offended, me as a Jewish person, to be offended by Krusty the Clown. You know, and the ways that he is portrayed, and the stereotypes, not so much his father, but he himself. But the thing is that, and also people might be offended by, why is his father a Hasidic rabbi? Why is he, you know, it seems like he's wearing a kolpik or something, or I can't tell, is a shtreimel, a kolpik, a spudik, what he's wearing. Or maybe it's a kuchma, I don't know. But anyway, you know, what's that all about, you know? And but then, like, you see, you know, when he's in the shul, there's no mechitza, and like, but it's a cartoon, it's silly, it's funny, and the thing is like, you know, it's like there was one episode of The Simpsons where, like, you know, Bart says to Lisa, it's just a cartoon, it's not supposed to mean anything, it's just a bunch of funny things that happen that's supposed to make you laugh. I mean, the thing is with The Simpsons, there is social commentary there, but part of the social commentary is the same, it's not quite as brash, usually, although sometimes, as say something like Blazing Saddles. But the point of Blazing Saddles, like, does anyone think that Mel Brooks is a racist because he made Blazing Saddles? Like, do you understand the point of a movie like that? You know? Like, and there's a reason why it's rated R. It's not for little kids to watch, because, yeah, little kids are not going to get the point of the statement that's being made by this film. You know, and it's more than just being funny, it's making a statement about the stupidity of racism. And yeah, so you won't show this to a small child because they might not understand that it's a joke, and they might parrot the horrible things that are said in the movie, but that's why it's rated R, because it's not for kids, it's for adults. But adults should be savvy enough to understand, you know, what's the point here. And yet people are going to be like, oh, you know, Mel Brooks, he must be a racist because he let them use these words in his movie. And no, dummy. I mean, yeah, you could say, you know, when it comes to and I brought up Amos and Andy, and times changed, and there were a lot of horrible racial stereotypes on one hand, and a lot of popular culture. I mean, I've seen things that actually offended me, as far as stereotypes and cartoons and stuff from the 30s, 40s, even to 50s. Horrible, really dumb, racist things that were really, truly racist. Now, Amos and Andy was, in a way, for its time, quite the opposite, I mean, you could say, it's an offensive minstrel show, this type of thing, and I understand that aspect of it. But then on the other hand, for that time and that place, it brought the African American culture of its time, and it wasn't, to a certain extent, into the mainstream to introduce to people, who, first of all, I'm pretty sure in those days, African American people did listen to Amos and Andy and were not really offended by it, but also people of other races were like, oh, they're human beings just like us. It took away, it really ameliorated and alleviated racism to a certain extent, and so too, when you would see, movies like The Little Rascals and the Bowery Boys and so forth, where you did, while you had characters that might be racial stereotypes to a certain extent, but on the other hand, you saw an integrated culture where blacks and whites were friends, and it wasn't about you're black, you're white, this and that, although maybe there might have been, certain jokes that were in bad taste and so forth about that, but still they were friends, that's the it was, for its time, it was quite progressive, but nowadays we don't understand that. I mean, I think people who think about it understand it, but you couldn't make a show like that. I understand that, that why. But the thing is you kind of see, from the 70s when they made Blazing Saddles, and where the African American character really turned out to be the hero, and the racists were the villains, and how brilliantly he handled that. And yet today that would be considered offensive because of the words they use and this and that, and where do you, how do you draw the line? But this thing with the Simpsons with Apu, I mean, I don't know, maybe I can't talk for Indian Americans, but I can talk for myself. I like the fact, personally, that you have Jewish characters and a rabbi character on The Simpsons. I remember I used to watch a show, The God Squad, where there was a Reform rabbi, but he was pretty right-wing for a Reform rabbi. A Reform rabbi and a Catholic priest, and they would sit and have conversations, and they were friends, and, opened up, they were golfing together and stuff, that was in the opening credits and stuff. It was, a talk show, and, and they discussed, real serious issues and things. It was quite a good show, and, I remember the rabbi said, how come, you watch a show like Saved by the Bell, that was a show that was on at the time, a show I used to watch, and how come you never see the characters going to church or something like that, And The Simpsons, they always going to church. It was a part of real life. Yeah, they made fun of church a little bit, but in a way that was usually reverent. You know, there were some irreverent things, but for the standards of the show, I think, you know, that's the thing you got to understand about The Simpsons. Is, again, it's not a kids show. You know, kids might enjoy it, and kids might learn valuable things from it. You know, but it's not really a kids show. It's a show for adults. Same thing with South Park. You know, a lot of people let their kids watch South Park, or kids would watch South Park. The South Park was not for kids. South Park was for adults. And so too with The Simpsons. And both of these shows will often have very important messages that, you know, and really make very strong and important statements, and yet people can't see through, you know, what's really going on. You know, like, I mean, I use these shows in sermons sometimes, not just to be cool and to be relatable, but because they're actually valuable. I mean, I was reading a thing with Matt Walsh. He was talking about how he heard, you know, church sermons, like, you know, where they're like, oh, we learned from Toy Story 2 about how to be a good friend or something like that. And, like, yeah, that's not something that belongs in a church sermon. But, like, I found things that are really, truly valuable in The Simpsons, and even in South Park. Even I haven't watched South Park in I don't know how long, years and years. But, you know, there were certain episodes that had very strong and important messages, you know. But, like, they're always making fun of the Jewish kids. They're always, you know, and, like, making fun of Jews and all kinds of things. But it's funny because it's silly and it's funny, you know. Like, you know, they go to Jubilee and, like, you know, Moses comes up as, like, Tron and, like, you know, and it's silly and it's ridiculous. And, of course, everybody knows we don't worship Moses, you know. It's just a joke. It's just a silly, dumb cartoon, you know. The interesting thing was, like, the episode, which is one that I point out a lot, where they basically teach the history of, you know, the foundation of Mormonism. And at the end, I think that's the real message of that episode, where, like, I think the character's name is Stan. He's, like, insulting the Mormon kid, and then the Mormon kid is like, you know, I just wanted to be your friend. I didn't really care to convert you, you know, and, you know, this makes, I don't know if I believe this or not, but it makes my family life a lot better. And, like, if you weren't grown up enough to understand that, you know, and then he said some, you know, vulgar insult to him, and, like, I use that all the time in the spirituality groups that I conduct, of how religion, you know, is valuable, you know, even maybe if you don't believe in it, you know. And there are people, you know, I've read articles and things, not that I really know, I know one or two people firsthand like this, who they say, you know, they don't believe in what our religion teaches, but they see that this is the best lifestyle possible. And so, you know, we you know, whether or not it's true, it makes our lives better. And our sages, you know, kind of say something like that, like, they say, if you could abandon me as long as you still keep my Torah, God says, you know. And I believe in God, and I believe it's all true. And I have very strong, you know, reasons for believing that. But, you know, I'm very convinced by the apologetic, you know, arguments that our religion claims. But if not, I can also recognize, how valuable a religious lifestyle is. Like Rabbi Bart Sadok always says, religion is more about man than it is about God, and that's how God wants it. And it's true. So, I don't know. I hope I didn't mean to offend anybody by talking about these things, but I think, I just question somebody calling themselves a comedian if they don't get that The Simpsons is supposed to be funny. I don't know. It's something very strange to me, and I don't mean this to be insulting to people from India. I don't have any problem with people from India. It's in certain ways, you learn about things about the Hindu religion and culture and things from watching this show that are true. Just like people learn things about Judaism and from watching these shows, or learn about Catholicism or Islam or whatever. Like, these are ways really for people to learn about different religions and cultures through these shows to a certain extent, but also they should know that not everything in it is true, and like, you have to have just some common sense and discernment to know what's real and what isn't. I don't know, it's just so strange to me that this I don't know, maybe things have changed so much and I'm so out of touch, which is quite possible, but really, a comedian is offended by a character on The Simpsons. I've often heard, some people say, the difference between a humorist and a comedian is a humorist is a comedian who isn't funny. You could maybe call yourself a humorist, but not a comedian. If this is going to be your reaction to the character Apu on The Simpsons, I don't know. It just it boggles my mind that this could be, and that I mean, if you could get a documentary like this on TV, so then I could make a documentary about any nonsense and get that on TV too, because that's just ridiculous. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm out of touch. I don't know. Well, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I don't mean to be offensive. I just really want to understand, because again, like I said, there are real negative stereotypes on The Simpsons of Krusty the Clown, and I don't find them offensive. I find them to be... I enjoy them. I don't know. Alright, well, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Alright, take care.